Morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, April 7th, and we're back with another edition of the Poem of the Day. I had a lot of fun recording the poem yesterday, Scrabble with Matthews, and it was fun, like being down on the beach and having my little guy there and my wife there and the dog there too. The dog he's currently taking a little snooze. He just wants to be outside. And, I've kind of joked a little bit about how he's like, you're late for work, and you have been for like a month. And we're kind of driving each other a little crazy. But it's just because we're off our routines. We still love each other very much. And I'm so grateful and so fortunate that he's so good with our little human guy. And even though, he just wants to be outside all the time. And I don't blame him. It's so nice out. And even though he's constantly like scratching and whining and barking to just come, he just wants to come lay in the backyard. And we have to, we have a long lead for him, only because he doesn't come back. Like he doesn't come back. He likes to go sit on the neighbors' porches and stuff like that. He's just like super friendly. And so when I was looking at Paul Matthews' poems, in reading yesterday's poem, the impetus for choosing the poem was because of Scrabble and how much I love Scrabble. And I can remember my parents, my mom, and I remember playing Scrabble with my mom and dad like when I was really, really young. And my mom tells stories about how her mom would, when she and her cousins would play, they'd be scoring in the 500s and 600s and things like that. And I don't necessarily, I choose to believe that that's absolutely true, and not, just part of like an urban legend or anything like that, or the mythology of someone who's good at Scrabble. I totally, absolutely believe that they regularly did that, and it was less of a game and more of, this intense, friendly competition. But it was, and not an attempt, but a demonstration of, power in a friendly way. And in any event, I remember now coming across Paul Matthews' poems, and when I was looking up his stuff and going back through, the volumes of poetry that I have and things like that, I came across this particular poem that kind of ties up all of those things as a cool, a cool literary nod as well. And so the poem that I chose to read today is a poem by Paul Matthews called Homer's Seeing Eye Dog. And of course, we're talking about the attributed author of the Odyssey. We spent a lot of time this year as English teachers, and we always spend time as English teachers talking about, like, why do we read the things that we read, and it's important. One of the things that I totally understand is at a certain element, like, we're building some social capital with some of the things that we read. And I think the Odyssey is one of them. It is such an epic story. It's such a great story. It's such an old story, and I get it. It's an old story. But there are so many things in the world that you can interact with a little bit more cleanly if you have read, or if you're exposed to the Odyssey. So it's a cool little it's an interesting kind of like crossroads stylistically between something like a Billy Collins and something like on misreading on misreading an ad for Beethoven's complete symphonies and the Man Moth and things like that. It's really cool and fun to see imagine. And that's one of the things that I don't think I've necessarily taken advantage of in the poems that I've chosen so far. A lot of the poems I've chosen have been like little moments and little observations, or linguistically exciting and stimulating and things like that. But this is a cool kind of like thought experiment of like, I imagine, like let's imagine collectively what this could be like. And it imagines a cool character. And the narrator of the poem is Homer's seeing eye dog, which is really kind of cool. And this reminds me of so many other things, obviously of the Odyssey, but also The Art of Racing in the Rain, for example, where you've got a narrator who is more canine than human, even though that's maybe a little debatable. So I'm going to read this poem for you now, and it's called Homer's Seeing Eye Dog by Paul Matthews. Most of the time he worked, a sort of sleep with a purpose, so far as I could tell. How he got from the dark of sleep to the dark of waking up, I'll never know. The lax sprawl sleep allowed him began to set from the edges in, like a custard, and then he was awake. Me too, of course, wriggling my ears while he unlocked his bladder and stream of dopey wake-up jokes. The one about the wine-dark pea I hated instantly. I stood at the ready, like a god in an epic, but there was never much to do. Oh, now and then I'd make a sure intervention, save a life, whatever. But my exploits don't interest you, and of his life all I can say is that when he'd poured out his work, the best of it was gone, and then he died. He was a great man, and I loved him. Not a whimper about his sex life. How I detest your prurience. But here's a farewell literary tip. I myself am the model for Penelope. Don't snicker, you hairless moron. I know so well what faithful means there's not even a word for it in dog. I just embody it. I think you bipeds have a catchphrase for it. To thine own self be true. Though, like a blind man's shadow, the second half is only there for those who know it's missing. Merely a dog, I'll tell you what it is. As if you had a choice. I love the idea of a well-read dog. It's a really cool take on a couple huge, giant literary works and literary figures, and wrapped up in, I'm always asking myself, I wonder what he's thinking, I'm thinking, because I'm always wondering what Indy's thinking. And it's a fun poem. There's a little bit of sadness in there, and it's an interesting poem to kind of unpack and explore. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get a chance to stay outside. Please, please, please keep washing your hands. Please, please, please keep being kinder than you feel like you might need to be. I know we're all struggling, and we're all doing as well as we can. All right. But please make sure that you're taking care of yourselves as best as you can, because it's really important now, more important than ever, that we're doing that for ourselves so that we can do that for other people too. All right. So we will catch you again tomorrow for another edition of the Poem of the Day. Take care, everyone.